Saul and Battery, hosted by Mel and Kelly.
And Mike.
Forget what you know. Forget what you know. Saul and Battery.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Saul and Battery, a Better Call Saul recap show. I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
And I am Mike at Official Pagan on just about everything.
And we are here to do two things today. One is to recap the third episode called Sunk Costs of Better Call Saul. And the second one is to possibly, for the first time, have me be successful in the 1 minute recap after Mike so publicly shamed me last show.
So let's just refresh everybody's memory really quickly. So the first episode, you asked for an additional 10 seconds and still didn't come in at 1:10. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, you broke up there, Mike. But
I'm sorry. Is this? Am I more clear now?
No, can't hear you at all. I'm kidding. Yes, Mike, I did request an extra 10 seconds, and I still failed miserably. And the second show was of equal length, and
I believe that when I started off, I kind of threw the gauntlet down of, hey, you know what? We're going to knock 10 seconds off mine. And so that would have been 50 seconds to cover the entire show of an equal length to the show that you did. And what was my time again? I can't quite remember.
I think it was about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. So
I'm going to be honest with you, though. It is still the hardest part of doing this show, because I remember when you originally pitched that idea to Mel and I was like, this is going to be so easy. It isn't. I actually take notes watching the show and then try and condense it. Like, this is the most work ever that I do for a podcast.
Yeah, and you and Mel, so we started this last season, and I believe, I'll have to go back and look at all the shows, but I'm not sure I've ever made it, or made them close once. And I take notes as well, and then my theory is, well, I'll highlight a few and I'll go through, but it's not gone well. So I'm hopeful today. You certainly inspired me last time, but you and Mel have done excellent recaps. I think I still got to give, very impressive to get it done in 20 seconds. I think when Mel has done it, she came close to the full minute, but it was a very rich and well done recap. Not that yours wasn't last week. Yours was good. You had tracker tracking the tracker in there, and it's all good kinds of stuff. So.
Oh no, listen, I know that it's so vague at points, my recap, but to me, like, that's the only way to really condense it down enough. Like on our other show, Squat Cobbler, when we do the Alice Cooper albums, I'm trying to put together my playlist, and I do not have the same ability to condense, apparently, as I'm trying to do that as I do with Saul. But I'm curious to see how you did this week. See if you can do the minute.
Well, without further ado, let's actually find out. So we can get that all set up here with our highly technical watch. Oh, okay, I'm good to go there. All righty, we'll get the camera locked on there. Okay, I'd like to point out. Oh, and of course the call just went out. I'd like to point out in this process that I have to, you're free of encumbrances and don't have to start the clock on your recaps, and I have to start the clock. So this adds a degree of difficulty, but
that adds at least 30 seconds, right?
Because it's like a mile away. It's a big challenge, but okay. So we'll give this bad boy a go, and here we go. Mike and Gus meet. Gus sets the rule no killo hectoro. Mike says, okay, but I'm not done with Hector Salamanca yet. Chuck is then, as the dick that he is, explains to Jimmy that this is all for the best, and Jimmy says that Chuck will die alone. Jimmy goes to jail, runs into Mr. Petty and a prior. Jimmy is charged and won't let Kim represent him. Mike goes shopping in Mexico, and he needs to work on his ability to throw shoes. He pulls up, but he does actually pull off the high top drug drop toss and gets Hector's boys busted, and Kim and Jimmy decide they're going to take on Chuck.
Wow, 40 seconds.
For me, not bad.
That's good. And high top drug drop is great. I feel like you topped my Mike tracking the trackers with the tracker thing.
I was working through it. I said I need something comparable.
High top drug drop was awesome. I can even say it. High top drug drop.
Yes, I had to write it out phonetically because I think that's going to be a hard one to roll out when the pressure's on.
That was good. I'm really impressed with that.
All right, so now we can get going on show. I'm so glad that's over. I'm so glad I finally got one done.
I feel like you definitely had one or two before.
I think I did the first one. I'll have to go back to season 2 cast, and I think on the first one I came either very close or got it, but then you and Mel nailed it, and then when I came back on the next one, all hell broke loose, and it didn't work, and then just didn't start off too strongly this season, but we're getting there, and I'm liking it. We stay in this vibe now. We can maybe at the end of this stitch some things together and maybe just have a bonus edition of a Saul and Battery that just strings all the recaps together, and then basically in 10 minutes or so you can catch up on the whole season.
That's a really good idea. I like that a lot.
Cool. So overall,
now, do you think? Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off. Do you think that for next season, then, as we both really refine this, and I'm sure Mel is playing along at home as well since she couldn't join us tonight, do you think next season you'd be willing to try like a 30-second recap?
Well, having possibly been successful for the first time ever in the 1 minute one, I don't want to jump on that train yet, but I think that would be a good additional challenge, because you've made it clear that 1 minute is now no longer a challenge for you. So I think 30 seconds would be really good. So yeah, I'm open to that. We'll hopefully get Mel cycled in here for this season's over and get her opinions as well. But I'm open to that conversation, and certainly open to the Saul and Battery. I don't know what we call fans of the show, but the folks who listen to this, if you've got any input to us, throw it either on the YouTube comment section or shoot Mike or I a tweet or something like that if you think we should be dialing this down to 30 seconds.
Also, if you want, tweet at the president and ask if he's a fan and what he thinks.
Yeah, we've been very interested in his opinion in all of our different venues so far. I'm going to guess no. I think he's not of this show. I think he might like Better Call Saul.
Oh, I meant of a fan of Better Call Saul, and then to weigh in on whether we should do 1 minute or 30 seconds. Now, what's funny is now that I say all this and brag about my 20-second time, next week's going to take me like 7 minutes.
We'll run out of time. Yeah, I'd like to see the president do one. It was an awesome show. It's very good. The most amazing.
I mean, he's extremely active on Twitter, right? So, I mean, he's used to condensing what he needs to say into 140 characters. So I feel like he actually could do it.
It's possible. I could see it.
I think he could come on, just kill it, mic drop, and leave. Like, we don't even explain why the president was on this show. He just comes in, does the recap, and is off.
I like it. Yep. Well, so hopefully we'll be hearing from Sean Spicer soon and get him. Actually, I kind of like Sean Spicer to do it as well.
Yeah, that would be good too.
Except he'd be like all critical of us and say, "You're nodding your head too much, Mike. Stop that." Okay, for this episode called Sunk Cost, overall, I liked it quite a bit. I have seen and listening to some other podcasts about Better Call Saul and some reviews on the interwebs. A little bit of grumbling in some camps around maybe the pacing is slightly slower this season. I've not really experienced that, and I certainly thought if that was what people were thinking in previous episodes, things are starting to pick up here in episode 3, and I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this quite a bit. Another beautifully shot episode. Your thoughts?
Incredibly shot episode. I would say that this was really up with the better episodes of Breaking Bad. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite because Breaking Bad had such great cinematography consistently throughout the entire series. There were so many great shots. I always compare Breaking Bad, and I'm not sure if you'll get if you were a fan of Twilight Zone at all.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But you know, like Twilight Zone played a lot with like crazy angles and perspectives and things like that. So like Breaking Bad to me was similar to that almost in its portrayal, I guess. I'm not even sure what the right wording is. Not that it was like the Twilight Zone, but just in their approach to cinematography and being more daring and trying different things. So this, to me, this episode in particular, it's always well shot, but this episode in particular was up there with the better Breaking Bad episodes.
Yeah, and I think, and I have yet to, I'm a big fan, of course, this is the first podcast that anyone should listen to regarding Better Call Saul, but
obviously.
After you get through ours, you may want to go to some other venues, and one of the best one is from the actual show. There's the Better Call Saul podcast that's related to the show, and it's really strong. It's very good, and they've been, I guess, I haven't been able to catch up on it yet, but from what I've heard, they're talking a lot about that they've got some new gear this year, including a nighttime camera that doesn't require any additional lighting. And then also just some much higher definition things to work with, and you can really see it in the show. It's amazing stuff. So just loving it, and it's, as always with anything that Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould are involved with, great writing, great directing, great acting, good story, and amazing cinematography. So what's not to love?
Right. Now, the one thing that I'll say as far as what they were saying about the pacing, I don't agree with that, but I will say in general that I do think Better Call Saul is intentionally much slower in building tension. And it's because it's almost like, and again, may sound like another weird analogy, but think about the original Halloween. Horror movies at that time were all about jump scares. Whereas the original Halloween really changed things in the sense that it showed you where the villain was almost at all times. You saw Michael Myers. The victim, the potential victim, didn't. And it built tension that way. And that's sort of where I felt like Breaking Bad, you never knew what was going to happen. There were so many twists and turns in the story and so many things they surprised us with the writing and with the arc of the characters. We know all that coming into this because this is a prequel. So I feel like this allows them to play with it the way that, like in Halloween, and we're kind of seeing what's coming and they're building tension that way. So I don't think that it's slower per se. I just think the way the tension is built is different.
I can see that. I think that's definitely a piece of it. And I think another thing that factors into it is eventually this character that many of us have come to really, really like, Jimmy McGill, is going to lose some of his more admirable qualities, like his conscience, like his caring about other people, like being ready and willing to kind of say, well, maybe you just need to kill this guy as a simple order of business. This is all coming when he becomes Saul, who's still a fun character, but not what you would call likable. And I don't know if you can stair step into that. So I just wondered too if there's just a bit of reluctance to, we need to keep moving the story along. But once Jimmy makes his descent into Saul, it's going to be a different show.
Yeah, it would be. Now, do you want to see it like? Do you want to see this show really just kind of end at the beginning of Breaking Bad, or do you want to see them sort of take their time and more gradually you hold on one second? I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Sorry. You want to see this show take the character all the way up to the Saul from the show, or end sometime before that?
So I want to see some true blue Saul in this show at some point in time. I mean,
like
the weird
crossing
part,
over into Breaking Bad storyline territory, or end before that timeline actually starts.
Before that timeline starts, right up to like the day before Walt walks into his office. Just just that idea, because he obviously becomes Saul, buys a lot of billboards, buys a lot of bus stop backbenches and all those types of things, has that rich and robust client base that you see sitting in his waiting room from hell in Breaking Bad. And so I'm willing to kind of see his rise to prominence in the area, but I don't want to see kind of overlap to the Breaking Bad timeline. I am interested in seeing a little more about what's going on in Nebraska with Gene, and so it might be interesting to see if that kind of kicks up a little bit further. We only get little spatterings of that right now at the beginning and ending of each season, but I'd be open to seeing a little bit more about that as well.
So you would like to see, because that was kind of my next question. So where do you want to see it go? Let's just say, all right, Better Call Saul goes right up until, say, the beginning of Breaking Bad, the way that we kind of anticipated it will. So now we have those kind of 2 chapters. So if they wanted to continue this, what would be the next chapter for you? So for you, it's a sequel to Breaking Bad? Because I was even thinking like maybe something that takes place during the same timeline as Breaking Bad, but focuses on other characters.
That would be good if they would do another one there that could run along similar timelines to Breaking Bad, but we got to see maybe a little more of Saul and his A-team, Huel and Kobe. That could be pretty fun stuff, and so all that would be pretty good. But yeah, I think that would be an interesting space. Plus, obviously, a lot of other characters, just like this one, where while this is Better Call Saul, it's equally the Mike Ehrmantraut story, and it's all the better for that.
Now, if they were to go the sequel route, would you want to see them just follow Saul, or would you rather see them pick up with another character from the Breaking Bad universe?
I would be. I'll take Saul all day and all night. Enjoy the character quite a bit. Enjoy Bob Odenkirk's work quite a bit. But I'd be open at this point to something else. So maybe a little more about Badger. Understanding the wonderful world of Badger could be fun.
That would be a great title for the show, The Wonderful World of Badger.
Yes. But my hunch is this is going to be the last of the universe. They extended. They had a great series. They knew when they needed to wrap it up. It's actually one of the benefits of the show is they didn't just go on and on and on. And I think it'll be interesting to see for Better Call Saul whether this is a 4 or 5 season arc, because I don't think things wrap up this season, but I don't know if it goes 2 more seasons after this or 1 more, but we'll see.
I mean, obviously the writing is so strong on all of this material that they could easily go 2 more without overstaying their welcome, but I could see the trajectory and the path that we're on now, which was kind of where I was going to go with the next question. I could see it wrapping up this season after this, because I feel like there was a big turning point in this episode, and I wanted to see if you felt the same way.
Yeah, I do think it was definitely a turning point in that Jimmy has always reconciled with Chuck, and I think those days are over.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any more there. But Kim's still hanging in there, and so we'll have to, the Kim-o-meter here at the end, we're going to have to see. And I hope, folks, and we mentioned this on the first show, that we've been doing the Kim-o-meter, and I'm going to come up with some graphic for it. I've just not had the time yet. But maybe this weekend that'll be a project, and we'll begin to include the Kim-o-meter in our blog posts and etc. We'll see. All right, on to the show. Sunk costs. We'll just kind of step through lightly some of this, each of the sections. See if we got any comments on them, and go ahead and work in your quote of the week when the time is right, sir.
Sure, it's pretty early on actually for me. So.
Oh, really? Then we don't have the same one, so that's interesting. Okay. Opens up beautifully shot, a silent, well, not silent, but there's no dialogue during the opening scene of some high top shoes hung up over a wire. Again, amazing cinematography that, and a Polo's truck. It's in the desert. It's beautiful. And as the Polo's truck rumbles by, the shoes fall to the ground, and you go to commercial and you're left wondering, I don't quite understand how this is part of the story. At least
right. No, and that's exactly the way I felt. I was like, where are they going with this?
Yeah. But then we come back to Mike, the first meeting of Mike and Gus. I love Jonathan Banks' portrayal and his just delivery, and it's, he holds up the don't note and says, care to elaborate? and Gus doesn't. But Gus kind of sets the rules to say, I kind of know what's going on. I know what you do. You can't kill Hector Salamanca yet. And Mike's starting to piece together that why Gus is open to him messing with Hector, but not killing him. And so why do you think at this point, Gus, who obviously is not a Hector fan for some obvious reasons from Breaking Bad, why do you think Gus is on the no killo Hectoro road?
Well, for whatever reasons that are still going to unfold before us, he needs him to still grow his business. And this is actually a question that I had for you, because I think you catch a lot more stuff on this show than I do. When we saw the previous episode where we initially see Gus at the maybe it wasn't drop at the restaurant, my takeaway from it was that this is really early in Gus's operation. Like, that he is far from the Gus that we know in the Breaking Bad universe. But then during the meeting with Mike, I got the impression that he's further along than I initially thought they were going to portray the character as.
Yeah, I think it's my guess, and it's just a guess, is it's somewhere between the middle of that. I still think he's not at the scale he was when Walt joined him. But the other part is, he had a big bump in production when Walt and Jesse ended up joining him, or Walt and Gail originally. But he was still, even before that, he was a pretty good going concern. But I think he is still early-ish. I don't think he's super small potatoes in the process, but I don't think he's quite at the level that we saw him in Breaking Bad at the beginning. But if I were to guess, and Mike mentions that, so Hector's your competition, this comes back to Hector's in the cartel. The cartel certainly knows the history between the Salamanca family and Gus. And if Hector happened to be shot in the desert one day, you would think the cartel's first assumption would be it was Gus. And
right.
So I think that a big thing right now is Gus fully wants to take Hector out, but it's like, I got to figure out how to do it on my terms, and not do it in a way that my hands can stay kind of clean on it. And he certainly wants to makes this guy's life hell, but he knows if Hector mysteriously gets shot, that he's on the short list for consequences on that.
Right, and that completely makes sense. I definitely think you nailed it with that.
And then we get Chuck, who I keep hearing rumblings through. By the way, folks, if you haven't gone to the AMC site for Better Call Saul, you really should. They have a lot of great written interviews, Q&A sessions with each of the actors, little video clips for each show highlighting one of the most talked about scenes, some background coverage, and the Polos Hermanos training videos. So you get Gus training you on cleanliness and distribution and customer service in a cute little Polos Hermanos training video. So those are great to see. And it's just in those and through other posts, I keep hearing these hints to say, well, don't necessarily assume that Chuck is this horrible person 100%. But I'm hard-pressed to see how he's not, because he's sitting there and he's telling Jimmy, this is the best for you. He's still he's kind of somehow saying he's got the high road on this, and he clearly doesn't. He's doing this because he does not have Jimmy's best interest at heart.
No, absolutely. I 100% agree that he doesn't have Jimmy's best interest at heart, but I could see, and again, just because we know how far these character arcs can go and how well written this show is, I could see Chuck going from sort of being the asshole and the bully in this situation to being more of the victim by the end of it. Like, I see Chuck as like the Skylar.
I could see some parallels there. Although, even though Skylar was a little bit irritating from time to time, she was not as kind of mean spirited.
Oh no, yeah, I completely agree with that. I just see a similar trajectory where he's going to go from being somebody who is this unlikable character to somebody that is more of the victim in the overall situation, and I think that's to some degree the trajectory we're going to see with Chuck, because I mean, there was no mention of him, just like there was no mention of Kim in Breaking Bad.
It'll be interesting to see how much the Skylar arc he follows, but we've got 7 more episodes this season to see where he goes. So Jimmy, you can kind of clear Jimmy's had it with him. He's like, "You're going to die alone." He gets booked, and our Petty and a Prior friend. My quote of the show was in that exchange, because Chuck tells him that he's going to come out of the end of this a changed man, which we know in a very literal sense he is. He's going to become Saul by the end of this. Wow, that blew right by me in terms of the irony of that statement, but absolutely, that's a great one. And then Jimmy's going through the booking process, and typical Kelly Dixon montage of booking process, which is always really cool. And Petty and the Prior guy's there, who's just a fun, quirky little character, and we can see him a little bit more here shortly. And then we kind of come back, and Ernie has been fired, fills Kim in on what's going on. Jimmy's getting charged with breaking and entering, property damage, assault. One of these is a felony breaking and entering, and Kim wants to represent Jimmy, and he takes a pass on it, and she's none too happy about that. And Jimmy, much like Kim, when she said, "This is my problem, I'll fix it," Jimmy's saying, "This is my problem, I screwed up, I'll fix it here." So some real interesting interactions between the whole Jim and Kimmy, or Jimmy and Kim interaction in the show was pretty cool. I really like the relationship between the two. It's fun.
So did I. Now, why do you think that he doesn't want Kim to represent, or didn't want Kim to represent him initially?
I think he's ashamed. I think he knows that Chuck is out for blood, and there's a chance for blowback, and he doesn't want anything that he's done to affect her. And I think he was genuine in his argument that she's got her hands full, given her obsessive nature even more full than usual with her Mesa Verde stuff. And he's like, "You don't need this on top of that." So I think some of it's out of just respect for her. Some of it's, I think he's ashamed, and he also knows that Chuck is definitely looking to mess with people here, and there's no reason to put her at risk. Your thoughts?
I agree with everything you just said, but I would also add, and I'd like your opinion on it. Do you think that not only is he trying to shield her and protect her, but do you think he realizes he's going to have to start being more aggressive and being more what would become Saul in order to be Chuck, and he doesn't want her near him?
I think that's a really good observation too, because I think that because he may go full Saul in this process, and he may not want her to see that, and he may not want her near that or have her associated with that approach. Then we get the Mexican doctor who we see in Breaking Bad, see his original practice. Mike makes a quick stop to pick up a package that's yay big. apparently. I'm a little surprised Mike, as a former Philly cop, who probably would be familiar with how many grams yay big is, was unable to provide the gram equivalent to yay big, but he did request a package, which I wrote in my notes. Probably getting drugs, but we don't know yet.
How many grams would you think the yay big package was, Kelly?
So I would not have Mike's experience, oddly enough, either Philadelphia Mike's experience, but so is that 30 grams? Because it looked like it was weird. His yay big was bigger than the package he got. So his package he got was like a double or triple sized tea bag.
Right.
And but I would say what Mike was showing looked to me like 30, and what he actually got was closer to 15. Do you think I'm close? I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
So we'll learn more about that momentarily, but we come back and Petty and the Prior is they're chatting with him a little bit more. Jimmy is really working hard, hoping that this is the guy that becomes the prosecutor because he knows he can work a deal with them, but that's a no-go. And this is where, and so Jimmy's plying him a little bit with French fries and a burger, and
which seems like such a tame version of bribery. Like when we see the real Saul later, I don't think he's bribing people with hamburgers.
Yeah, I think Saul moves on to other things, but for whatever reason, this guy, it takes very little to make his day. It appears when
like it's almost like, I know it's bribery, but it's almost like quaint bribery.
Yeah, but this guy, no pun intended, eats it up because he's all about, as soon as the fries are offered, he's hitting those pretty hard. And then after it kind of turns out that it's going to be a washout, that he's not going to be the person prosecuting, that he asked, and it looked like a really good burger. He goes, "So are you going to eat that?" And that's when Jimmy gives my favorite quote of that. It's basically an exchange between the two of them where he's like, "You going to eat that?" And Jimmy slides it over to him and goes, "Nah, too many trans fats." And then Petty and a Prior guy responds back, "Those are the best fats." So that was my favorite quote of the show.
That was almost mine. That was my second. I wrote them both down, but I had to go with the changed man one. But that was so good too, that line.
Definitely. So we cut back to Mike, and he's out in the desert with a spiffy new pair of red high tops, and he drops his package in one of the shoes, ties them together, and is going to throw them over the wire, just like the shoes we saw at the beginning of the episode. Now, going into this, his throws to the wire, our past experience was that when Walt attempted to throw a pizza up on the roof of his house, he was successful with one toss. Going into this, as Mike began to wind up on his first toss, did you think it was going to be one and done, or did you think he was going to need multiple attempts?
So I wasn't surprised that he missed the first one, but then when they had the multiple attempts, at first I was kind of like, this is weird. They have him miss a number of times there. But then, and maybe I'm weird for taking it this place, I was like, I don't know if I could do that. Yeah, if I was in that scene, I don't know. I would have been there for like an hour trying to get that up on there. I'm not athletic, so I don't know that I could ever get it up on there. And if I did, it wouldn't be like 4 or 5 tosses.
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would be multiple attempts for me as well, and it's not something that that most of us have a lot of experience with. So to kind of figure out the mechanics was good, and he's his form was good from the beginning. He had a good toss on that. So he was never embarrassing himself in terms of, they were always close, but it was off to the side or whatever. So he was getting close, but I do think too that it seemed just a little to just nail it the first time. Made it a little more real. They took him a couple attempts, but he does get him up there. Then we cut away from that and we get back to Ms. Hay, who's going to be the prosecuting attorney, who's tough but fair, we hear. And Chuck's kind of doing his whole line of BS around, yes, I'm willing to testify, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, but I might have an idea where everybody kind of there's a better solution for everyone, and they cut away from there. So can hardly wait to hear what that is, because I think a better solution for everyone's a better solution for Chuck, is my opinion. But
right. I mean, to me, it's clear that what he was, I didn't know what his better solution was going to be, but to me, it's clear that what Chuck's plan is with all of this is to go after Jimmy's license.
Yep, absolutely. We find out just momentarily a little more about that, because we come back. We got Mike with the sniper scope. He's sizing up the a couple of Hector's men. They're doing a gun drop. They've got a place to hide some of their guns, and he's got them in the crosshairs. And then basically every time he gets them in the crosshairs, he lifts the gun up and fires it in the air. And they kind of look around, and then this goes on for a while, and they eventually assume that it's hunters, and they go about their business. And I was pretty confused exactly what Mike had going on here until, as they're getting ready to leave, of course, he fires a shot and does the high top drug drop and nails the shoe right in the toe, and the contents of the package sprinkle down on the top of the truck and its back fender. So now we know, my assumption is if the first shot he fired was when the truck was underneath the shoe, then those guys are going to stop and look around and see what's going on. But because he did all those other ones in advance, they're like, still those hunters. So it came together for me. Finally, it's like, oh, now I get it. And they get busted. We get the chance to see the truck depot that we'd seen earlier with Hector's folks, and so they get busted. So this is more problems for Hector. He loses another big shipment and a couple of men. Anything else on that scene outside of it was really kind of clever?
No, I got, like, when I saw him there with the gun, I put together really quickly, okay, he's going to shoot the shoe and it's going to drop down onto the truck. And I kind of got it, at some point there's going to be a border or something where they're going to get caught now because there's drugs on the truck. But when he started just firing into the air, I was completely lost. I had no idea where he was going to go with that.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a cool scene because I was like, Mike's not just going to drop these two guys, is he? But because it just seemed like that had been a little bit much for Mike at this point. But and then just an amazingly shot scene, a lot of it with just Jimmy and Kim silhouetted against this glass wall, talking about the situation. And sure enough, Chuck's better solution for everyone is this pre-prosecution diversion deal, where basically if Jimmy confesses to everything, including the felony, he doesn't get, my sense of how they explained it is he wouldn't get prosecuted for any of it, and if he stays clean for a year, he's off the hook. However, that him admitting to a felony does go to the board and does exactly what you're talking about, which is pretty much a guaranteed way for him to lose his law license.
Yeah, even earlier in the episode when they were having that chat on the curb and he was talking about him, how this is going to make him better and everything like that. Like, to me, it was clear that what he's ultimately trying to get at here isn't to get Jimmy locked up, but to get his law license. So I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I felt like we were going to end up here by the end of the episode.
And then Kim cites the fallacy of sunk costs and says, "I'm in it. I want to help. You need me." And Jimmy's surprised she's really willing to do that. But these two have such a great relationship. And so now we're going to see Jimmy and Kim versus Chuck, which I'd put my money on Jimmy and Kim because Kim's crazy smart and good, and Jimmy is slipping Jimmy. So it should be fun. Although this Ms. Hay looks like a formidable lawyer as well, so I think she's not going to be someone they can roll over particularly easy. But I got to imagine Chuck gets on the stand at some point in time, and that's going to be magic.
Yeah. It's interesting because on one hand I was like, well, maybe he loses his license and that's why the name change and all that stuff. But then Saul had the commercials and the billboards and all that kind of stuff. So if he lost his license, even changing his name, he's not going to get away with it.
No, yeah, I don't. I think he's got to come out of this some way.
Right. I think he is coming out victorious on this one, and this could be, how we see sort of the end of his relationship with Chuck, the final nail in the coffin of his relationship with Chuck, whatever's about to happen when Chuck gets on the stand.
Yeah. And I look forward to, it'll be interesting to see. So who do you think, so it sounds like, Kim and Jimmy are going to join forces on this, which I'm going to assume means that Kim is going to actually represent him. So
Right.
do you think Kim is the one that cross-examines Chuck, or do you think they find a way to have Jimmy do it?
I'm not sure. I was wondering that myself. I really don't know, but I do think that the cross-exam of Chuck is going to be what finally breaks him. That's what I think. They're going to really go after him. We're going to see, more of the actual Saul personality come out. They're really going to go after Chuck and actually really break him on the stand.
Yeah. And I think go after his pride. I think that he's going to do everything he can to humiliate Chuck in front of me, because that seemed the most important thing to Chuck. It appears to be is what other people think of him and the respect they have for him. And I think he's going to try and just strip that away with really shining a bright light on. So tell me a little bit about how you've been living for the past few years. I think he's going to find a way to dredge a lot of that up and see how it works out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously that would be the thing to use against him. So I'm wondering how that's going to play out in the courtroom.
Yeah, because that seems like the obvious play, and what we know with this group of writers is they don't necessarily always do the obvious play. Right. So that they come up with a much more creative thing as well. Cool. All right, Kimometer time. I believe when we last left the Kimometer, yours was sitting at, reminder for everybody, Kimometer is a 0 to 100 scale, where 0 is that she's the Empress of the Hawaiian Islands and living the great life and healthy and hale and just hugely successful and happy. And 100 is she's dead as a doornail. Mike, I believe you had her at 55, in the 55 range. And I was around 51 after the last episode. Anything happened in this episode that wants you to adjust your meter, or you want to keep it pegged around 55?
I might go up a point or two, to be honest with you, because I feel like with my quote of the episode of the change man thing, and with Jimmy trying to kind of push her away a little bit, I think it's because, he knows what he's going to have to do to beat Chuck. Chuck is already alluding to, him changing, but he's not going to change in the way that Chuck thinks he is. And I think that as Jimmy gets closer to becoming Saul, ultimately Kim becomes closer to her fate.
So 57 for you?
Yeah, let's do a 57.
Yep, and I think I'm going to move up. I think closely aligning with Jimmy, changes coming with Jimmy, things not good. I think, and another episode where you start to really, really like this character more and more. Every episode, although it's pretty impossible not to like the character, the actresses work on it, and just how the character is written. She's super likable character, but it just seems to me the more and more you like her, the more and more likely it is that bad things are going to happen. And so I'm gonna take my.
They're making us like her more and more, just so it hurts that much worse.
Yep, that's my theory. And so you're 57. I was at 51. I'm gonna move up to 55 here. And so Kimometer's going a bad direction for us here. Hopefully things change, but that's where we're at right now. And as I mentioned, I'll do my best to get us a little graphic on here in a future show. We'll see how the weekend goes. So. All right. Anything else for this week, sir?
No, I think that's about it for this episode for me.
Great. Well, anyone who's taken the opportunity to make it all the way through this episode with us, appreciate hearing from you, either on Twitter, YouTube comments or whatever. Let us know what you like or don't like about it. Or if you're interested in coming on sometime as well to kind of chat through the episode, because if you do come on, you too can have the opportunity to try and recap the episode in 1 minute. And you might want to take us up soon on that because it could be going to 30 seconds.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to try that as your first one. Well, I had somebody try to get on the show a couple of times tonight, so unfortunately, though, he had not watched the episode, so
he wasn't up to speed. So, yeah. All righty, cool. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up for this one, and looking forward to talking about this next week. I've got some interesting kind of things going on in terms of travel and et cetera. So it may be Wednesday next week. It may not. We'll see. We'll let you know on Twitter. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.